Stop crying, Sarah. Your tears are nothing but a disgrace to this family now.
Father, please, don't sell me to that old man. I'm begging you.
Sell you? It's called a strategic marriage, girl. If you're going to keep this up, just get out. Go to the mountains. Go live with that idiot mountain bear, Elijah, for all I care.
All right then. I will.
What? Where do you think you're—
I'm going to the mountains, just like you said. But I'm not going empty-handed.
Put that rifle down. That's my—
I'm done crying, Father. From now on, this rifle will cry for me.
Virginia, 1863. The war was tearing the nation apart, but in the mansion of General Marcus Whitfield, a different kind of war had been raging for years. Shara Whitfield was known by one name in polite society, the crybaby. She wept at funerals. She wept at birthdays. She wept when the sun set too beautifully. Her father, the general, despised weakness, and in his eyes, his daughter was the weakest thing alive. But that night, something inside her shattered. Not broke, shattered. Like glass under a hammer, every fragile piece reformed into something sharp, something deadly. She ran, not away from her fear, toward her fury. The mountain forest swallowed her whole. Most women of her station would have died out here within hours, but Sarah wasn't looking for shelter. She was looking for a weapon. And she knew exactly where to find one. A massive figure steps into frame. Elijah, shirtless, muscled, an axe in his hands. He freezes when she sees her. "Miss Sarah, you're bleeding." Sarah looked down. Her hands were cut from the thorns. She didn't seem to notice. "Elijah, I need your help." "You need a doctor, miss, and dry clothes. I'll take you back to—" "No." She raised the rifle, not at him, just showing it. "I'm not going back, ever. Do you understand?" Elijah understood loneliness. He'd lived with it his entire life. The people in town called him the Mountain Bear, not because he was dangerous, because he was different, too strong, too quiet, too other. Young Elijah being mocked by town children, adults avoiding eye contact, a church door closing in his face. They said he was slow, stupid, but Elijah wasn't stupid. He just never learned to read the words on a page. What he could read was the forest, the wind, the tracks, the tremor of a deer's heartbeat half a mile away. Elijah studying Sarah's face. "What do you need, miss?" Sarah, steady now. "I need you to learn, and I need you to fight." She opens one of the manuals. Rain drips on the pages. "My father thinks I'm useless. He thinks you're an idiot. I'm going to prove him wrong on both counts." She looked him dead in the eye. No pity, no condescension, just respect. It was the first time in Elijah's life anyone had looked at him that way. Elijah, slow nod. "What do I gotta do?" Sarah, small, grim smile. "Everything I tell you." Lightning illuminates them both. An unspoken pact forms. And so, in a cabin forgotten by the world, a crybaby and a beast began forging something the war had never seen, a ghost, a legend, a silent general.
The training began at first light, and it was hell. Sarah firm but patient. "This is W, for wind, for Whitworth. Say it." "W." "Good. Again." She taught him to read, not poetry, not scripture, ballistics, elevation, windage, the language of death. His hands were made for axes and stone, but she was patient, relentless. Every mistake was a lesson, every lesson a step. She pushed him, not cruelly, necessarily, because she knew what he didn't yet, that his body was a gift, his senses a miracle. He just needed to aim them. Weeks became months, the leaves turned gold, then fell, and Elijah transformed. He learned to calculate distance by sound, to predict wind by the taste of air, to slow his heartbeat between shots. She didn't just teach him to shoot, she taught him to hunt men. Sarah, watching him, "You're doing well." "You mean that?" "I don't say things I don't mean, not anymore." Something shifted during those months. At first she saw him as a tool, a means to an end. But tools don't smile when you praise them. Tools don't leave wildflowers by your door. Tools don't make you feel seen. Northeast, 2 degrees, wind shifting. Got it. Then became something the manuals never described. 2 halves of the same weapon. She was the mind, he was the trigger. And slowly, inevitably, they became something else. Elijah concentrating hard. E-L-I-J-A-H. Beautiful. It's just chicken scratch. Sarah touching his hand. No, it's proof. You're not what they said you were. What am I then? Mine. She didn't cry anymore. Didn't need to. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't drowning. She was building. And what she built was magnificent. By winter, Elijah could hit a Confederate button at 400 yards, in fog, in darkness, in a heartbeat. He was no longer the mountain bear. He was the ghost of Blue Ridge, and he didn't even know it yet. A rider approaches the cabin, Union uniform, urgent. "Miss Whitfield, your father, the general's battalion is surrounded. Cedar Creek, they're calling for reinforcements." She hands Elijah the Whitworth. Their fingers touch on the barrel. Sarah whispers, "Show them who you are." Elijah nods. "I'll bring him back, I promise." The crybaby who ran into the mountains was gone. In her place stood a strategist, a commander, a woman who'd turned an outcast into an army of one. And now the war would meet him. God help them all. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just sent the love of her life to his death.
Cedar Creek was a slaughterhouse. General Whitfield's battalion was trapped in a valley. 3 scythes surrounded, artillery raining down. His men were dying by the dozens, and the old general, for the first time in his career, tasted fear. He'd called for reinforcements hours ago. None came. The Confederates were closing in. Victory was minutes away. And then the killing stopped. Not the battle, just the dying, on one side. Another Confederate fell, then another, each from impossible distances, no muzzle flash, no sound. Confederate officers shouting, "Sniper, where the hell is he?" They couldn't see him, couldn't hear him. Elijah moved through the Blue Ridge like smoke. 1 shot, 1 kill, relocate. The Whitworth rifle whispered death, and he was its voice. 400 yards out, he could smell the gunpowder on their breath. He heard their heartbeats in the silence between artillery shells. Every lesson Sarah taught him burned in his mind like scripture. Breathe in, hold, squeeze. The commander fell. Chaos erupted in Confederate lines. 12 shots, 12 officers down. The Confederate advance shattered like glass. Union soldiers emerging from cover, confused but emboldened. "Who the hell is that?" I don't know, but he's on our side. General Whitfield knew. Somewhere in his gut he knew. Only one rifle in Virginia could shoot like that. His rifle, the Whitworth he kept in his study, the one his crybaby daughter stole. But Sarah couldn't shoot, could she? The battle intensified, Confederate forces retreating, Union soldiers pushing forward. And through it all, the ghost on the ridge kept firing. But ghosts can bleed, and even legends make mistakes. He was so focused on protecting them, he forgot to protect himself. The bullet hit him in the back, punched through his lung. He didn't scream, exhaled, like he was surprised. He tried to stand, couldn't. Tried to breathe, couldn't. His vision blurred, but before the darkness took him, he looked down at the valley. The general was safe. Sarah's father would live. Elijah smiled, and then he died, alone on a ridge with a rifle he'd learned to love, protecting a man who'd called him an idiot. The enemy falls to the ground, and before he has time to understand what happened, it's over. Somewhere, miles away in a mountain cabin, Sarah felt it, the moment her world ended. She didn't cry, not yet. She just whispered his name. Elijah.
They gave Elijah a hero's burial. All honors. 21-gun salute. The same men who'd crossed the street to avoid him in life now stood in silence at his grave. But the coffin wouldn't move. It made no sense. Elijah was big, yes, but not that big. The coffin should have moved. Wood and flesh, basic physics, but it stayed rooted to the earth like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The general stood watching, silent, haunted. This was his fault, and everyone knew it. She walked through the soldiers like they weren't there. Didn't acknowledge her father. Didn't acknowledge anyone. Just moved toward the coffin with terrible purpose. The cemetery went silent. Even the wind stopped, and Sarah spoke. Not loud, barely a whisper, but every soul there heard it. Sarah whispered, "The war is over, my love. You won. You saved them all. But I need you to let go now. Please, let's go home." She stood, wiped her eyes, looked at the soldiers. She said, "Try again." The soldiers hesitated. Then 6 of them gripped the handles. Lifted, it moved, as if it had been waiting for her permission, waiting for her voice. They buried him on a hill overlooking the valley, the same valley he'd protected. Sarah stood there until the last shovel of dirt was placed. Then she turned to her father. The general opened his mouth to speak, to apologize, to explain. But Sarah held up one hand. Sarah said, "You were wrong about him. You were wrong about me, and you'll live with that until you die." She never spoke to him again. Some say she went back to the mountains. Others say she became a field nurse, saved hundreds, never cried, not once. The war ended 2 years later. The ghost of Blue Ridge became legend. Songs were written, stories told, but they got it wrong. They said a lone sniper saved Cedar Creek. They never mentioned the woman who made him, the woman who saw a beast and forged a warrior, the woman who proved that the strongest weapon isn't steel, it's belief. Now here's where this story takes a turn. Everything you just heard, the silent general, Sarah and Elijah, the unmovable coffin, it's not just a Civil War tale. This story is actually a reimagining of a 1,500-year-old Korean legend. The legend of Ondal the Fool and Princess Pyongang. In the original tale, a princess runs away from an arranged marriage to find a man her father called a fool. She teaches him, trains him, loves him, He becomes a legendary warrior, dies in battle defending his kingdom, and when they try to bury him, his coffin won't move, not until the princess whispers that it's time to rest. This legend has been retold countless times over the centuries, most recently in 2021 as the Korean drama River Where the Moon Rises. The show became a massive hit across Asia. Millions watched as the ancient story was brought to life again. Different cultures, different wars, different names. But the same truth echoes through time. That love can transform the broken into legends. That belief is the most powerful weapon. And that some bonds are so strong, even death has to ask permission. So the next time you hear about the ghost of Blue Ridge, remember. Every ghost has an origin. Every legend starts with a choice. And every silent general has a voice. You just have to listen close enough to hear it. This has been The Silent General, a story 1,500 years old and brand new. If you found this reimagining intriguing, you've just discovered what we do here at Origins Reimagined. Every culture has its hidden gems, legends that have shaped history, yet remain untold beyond their borders. We believe these stories are universal. They don't belong to just one nation, they belong to the world. Our mission is to breathe new life into these ancient origins by placing them in worlds you already know, from the dusty trails of the Old West to the cold steel of the Civil War. Next time, we're sailing to another interesting legends. Don't miss the next legend reborn. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to join our community of story hunters. I'm the narrator for Origins Reimagined. And remember, the past is never truly dead. It's just waiting to be retold. See you in the next world.